everyone, and welcome back to the Village People. In this video, we're going to take a look at the homebrew race, the Porcelain Doll. Take a look and see what makes it different, look at its history, its culture, and what makes it a unique playable race for D&D 5th edition. So without further ado, let's take a look at the Porcelain Doll. Porcelain dolls are a people that are designed and created as servants. Typically created in the past as servants to hags or another ancient civilization, these people have since been freed in some portions of the world, with many of these individuals finding a new life's purpose in their own eyes. Delicate and dainty, these beings were created to serve and not be seen, be seen, not heard. As such, many of the free porcelain dolls have varying personalities, ranging from the more demure and shy to the extremely outspoken and unabashed. This has led to a very different set of groups within the already small porcelain doll community that have shaped history in each their own way. The more demure have become highly sought-after servants that serve in the courts of many a powerful individual or family, while the more outgoing and outspoken have become agents of change within the world to some extent. Tending to serve as spies, courtesans, and informants, these individuals take advantage of their history of servitude and the timeless nature of their being to get close enough to their targets to collect information and spread that information to those that find it of interest. As such, these spies, information brokers, and assassins have shaped the course of history since they gained their freedom. Porcelain doll culture is relatively rare. Groups of porcelain dolls seldom meet, with each individual porcelain doll of the more demure sect walking their own path. However, the more outgoing group with more proactive interests has developed support systems around themselves of other porcelain dolls and trusted individuals of other races in an effort to support them in their endeavors. This can be exemplified by the existence of a thieves' guild, for example, that employs a number of these porcelain dolls to pose as servants and collect information on their targets before ultimately assassinating them in their sleep. It is also exemplified by the half-elven leader of a criminal syndicate serving as a simple figurehead and partner of the real mastermind, a porcelain doll that truly runs the show, usually with international plans in place with other porcelain doll criminal syndicates. Even this level of interconnection is tenuous at best, though. Leadership of porcelain doll groups often works together with great mistrust of one another. The peace is kept by the threat of mutually assured destruction on the individual and international level, a robust network of spies, and the ever-dwindling number of porcelain dolls as the year goes on. Let's take a second to talk about their actual appearance and what they would actually look like if you were to play them as a race. Porcelain dolls typically resemble humans or other humanoids with a similar body plan and designed features. However, they may also resemble any other humanoid race based on their creator's interests and the nature of their original service. Keep in mind, these are a race of humanoid doll people that were designed to be servants. So you aren't going to necessarily have your butler look the same as your cook, look the same as your whatever, but they have a very similar body plan. Seeing as porcelain dolls were constructed to their current forms, they will retain a standard set of features for the entirety of their life, with their form holding a number of hallmark features that allow for ease of identification. Basically, each porcelain doll is unique, and they don't necessarily have standard can't tell anybody apart. They have a very specifically, due to their creation, set of features that allow them to be like, yeah, that's Tom, yeah, that's Judith, those kinds of things. But these features are determined when the doll is made. The process of construction involves the magical formation of a clay body before ultimately sacrificing a living humanoid to transfer their soul into the new body. This process that transfers the soul erases the soul's memories. That means that when the porcelain doll, on its first waking, has a chance to see itself, it doesn't recognize any past memories before that moment. And while they bear the face of the person that they used to be, they don't recognize it as anything more than their current features. Porcelain dolls are otherwise covered in a thick porcelain material that offers the doll both protection and a little bit of vulnerability. The porcelain doll itself is not made of porcelain, not as the creature. They're merely wearing it like an outer shell. In reality, a porcelain doll is a modified clay golem to some extent, with the interior of the porcelain being a mass of shifting clay, held in place by their porcelain shell armor. Their eyes resemble humanoid eyes and can move in much the same way. Their mouths move when they speak within an interior that is porcelain shell until you reach the back of their throat, where it opens into a clay interior. This allows them to consume material to feed themselves and recover over time. Now, this is all well and good, but, how do you play a construct when it comes to D&D 5e? One of the important things to recognize in here is I'm mentioning that you would very likely have to eat. Basically, the clay within you is a magical source of clay, and being able to consume either, regular food to some extent, but also more mineral like clay allows for a porcelain doll to recover in much the same way that a normal person would. That allows them to rest. That allows them to, in their rest, let their body take time on the interior to repair any damages that it has suffered over time. It allows it to repair the porcelain shell should it become cracked or otherwise damaged. It also allows the doll, with enough of the material and time, to effectively become back to what a normal person might look like. It could become almost completely obliterated, but ultimately then still heal. Now, much in the same way that a normal person might be able to do so, granted, but it's not necessarily Deadpool where a single cell could re-expand to become a whole new Deadpool, but it's can take quite a bit of damage compared to, mundane, normal porcelain doll, which, if you look at the thing wrong, could break, and then it's irreparable. So, when you're looking at the porcelain dolls, consider that these are designed to be just a different kind of person. They are designed to give you a vibe that is servitude and subterfuge to some extent, depending on what sort of personality you want to give your porcelain doll. So let's take a look at some of the porcelain doll traits. What sort of the following traits do you get if you choose to play a porcelain doll? Well, due to the varying nature of service and design, porcelain dolls do vary widely from individual to individual. That means that for an ability score increase, you can choose one ability score of your choice to increase by 1, and another to increase by 2. Kind of a standard 1 and 2 setup, but you get to pick. You don't have to pick one and this other one is already set up into the other thing. Depending on the service that you were designed for, those are the skills that you inherently have based on your racial structure. Maybe you're a little bit more robust because your whole deal was construction. Maybe you're stronger. Maybe you're more dexterous. Maybe you're more charismatic. Maybe it's something, because the whole purpose of your existence was to be a mason, to be a courtesan, to be a test subject, to be something, right? These are our servants that, for the most part, were created by people that were not hesitant to murder somebody and put their soul into a doll. So why would they have any issues with destroying a doll other than the fact that it means that they lose the doll? And so they're going to design them for a very specific purpose whenever they do create it. The next feature is a feature that's called Built to Serve. Your historic servitude has ingrained a number of skills into your being. You can choose up to 3, either skill proficiencies, musical instruments, artisan's tools, or languages. And you gain any combination of those up to 3 choices. Maybe you were a translator. Maybe that was your whole deal. Maybe you were just a musician, you were an entertainer. Maybe you were actually an artisan. Maybe you had other skills for expertise that helped to round out the gaps of what you were supposed to be doing. But that's completely up to you, and so you get to choose 3 of those things. The final trait that you get is porcelain armor. The porcelain armor that covers your entire body affords you greater protection. You have resistance to acid damage and immunity to poison damage by default, but while your armor is intact versus when your armor is broken gives you different things. When your armor is broken, you don't benefit from additional armor class or anything else that the armor would give you, which we'll get into. And damage comes through as normal outside of your resistance to acid and immunity to poison. But while you have your armor and it's intact, you have resistance to piercing and slashing damage, but you have vulnerability to bludgeoning damage. Your armor can very easily be cracked by bludgeoning damage. Piercing damage and slashing damage, while yes, dangerous for a very, very thick porcelain armor, is not going to be necessarily as damaging as getting hit with a hammer. Your porcelain armor does also afford you a base armor class of 14, and it does benefit from your dexterity modifier. So you could, if you had a maxed out dexterity at level 1, while you have your armor, have a base armor class of, at the very least, for that, 14, and at the very most, 19. Because you could have a +5 if you do the right thing that way. And that's without wearing any actual armor. That does leave you somewhat vulnerable, though. Now, your armor does absorb a number of hit points of damage. When it does end up kind of almost like an abjuration ward, absorb a certain number of hit points of damage, it can break. And then you end up losing that armor benefit. It can take a number of hit points for damage equal to your proficiency bonus, plus your player level, plus your constitution modifier. So at level 20, you get 20 plus, I believe it's either 5 or 6 for your proficiency bonus, plus if you have a extremely maxed out constitution modifier, plus 5. So you have at the very least 5 and then more. So 25, almost 30 points of damage that it can absolutely handle before it fully breaks. Any damage that this armor cannot absorb, though, does translate to you as normal towards this inner body. Basically, you don't necessarily have to have all of the armor break off and have this clay mass walking around, but you do have to recognize that that armor is no longer fully protecting you. And in terms of a visual aspect, that's up to you. But it's cracked, it's beaten, it's horrible, and it looks bad, and you look hurt, because then otherwise people can't heal you. But you look hurt, and all of the damage that you take once your armor is broken does get through to you. Fire damage is going to still hurt you. Cold damage is going to still hurt you, but not necessarily as much when you have your armor. And it basically gives you like a racial trait of temporary hit points. But if anybody sees a porcelain doll walking around and they have a hammer in their hand, well, then they can take out that armor relatively quickly. And it doesn't necessarily do good things if they just immediately smash you. And bludgeoning damage is fairly common, so it's kind of a catch-22. You get a bunch of skills, you get a bunch of other things, you get temporary hit points, but it's also kind of dangerous, so you gotta be very careful. That's it for the Porcelain Doll. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully this leans a little bit more into different constructs. I'm looking at developing a few different homebrew races based off of turning monsters within the monster manual into a playable race. And so the Porcelain Doll is a wonderful design for a clay golem. Like that being said, though, let me know what the next few homebrew races you would like to see next. I will see you all in the next video. There's a link to the poll, actually, I should mention, in the description of the video here, or you can always check the community tab if for some reason it's not showing up. Thank you all for watching, though. Be good to one another, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.